I want to ask you about the worst case scenario for winter, because as the Germans are trying to stockpile and preserve gas for winter, they clearly are ahead of the curve versus some of the other European countries. What is the worst case scenario for Germany and also for the rest of Europe if we don't get the stockpiles right?
The worst case scenario is energy rationing. That would be that non-essential industries are asked at the first stage to reduce consumption in return for compensation. It's a plan the government in Germany published over the weekend. The next step would be to ration really for, ration industries and households and ask them to consume much less. And that's something in Europe most people have never experienced, energy rationing. And that in winter means people will get cold. And in some areas, if it's a cold winter, some people will die, and that's politically really toxic. And of course, it's a nasty situation to be in. That is the worst case scenario. I actually think most governments in the EU and in the UK as well are taking the right steps to probably avoid it. But if it gets cold and all Russian gas stops flowing, things could get really nasty and tight.
So before we get to that point, there is a conversation around behavioural change from consumers. And I was having this debate with Patrick Bouyanné on the stage the other week. And effectively he was saying, look, instead of trying to subsidise some of these companies at this point amid high energy prices, governments should be communicating, saying, change your behaviours, cut back on your level of consumption. How do governments have that discussion, that dialogue at this point?
Yes, so he's right to say that. And it's probably started a little bit too late. The discussion probably should have started in March, at the end of last winter, but it is kicking off now. Again, in Germany, this is happening. In Italy, it actually happened a little bit earlier, where the government asked people to not use air conditioners as they normally would. And in Germany, for instance, they're now saying that in winter, you should probably try and reduce your indoor temperature from 22 degrees centigrade to as low 16, which is pretty nippy. But this dialogue conversation is happening. And in fact, actually, gas consumption, residential and industrial, is already down quite significantly versus this time last year. So it's having an impact. And that's what makes me a little bit sort of cautiously optimistic that this will work out.